Hey everyone. So what we're going to be doing next is a technique called frottage. And frottage was a technique that was invented or created by his artist in the early 1900s, Max Ernst. And what he would do is he would take, pencils or crayons, and he would rub them across the surface of different, objects like bricks or maybe the floor or anything that would elicit a unique pattern. So I've used baskets and I've used different things. So like this, a Easter basket, a box fan. And what you do is you put a sheet of paper over and you lightly rub a crayon or a pencil across. And what that does, that makes the texture stand out. And you may have done this when you were a little bit younger, but what we're going to be doing with frottage is we're going to take these rubbings that we see, and we are going to take a fine tip marker, a ballpoint pen, anything that you have access to, and we're going to outline them. By outlining them, you're going to make some things stand out that you may have never seen in these objects before. And it's really part of this idea of what surrealism is. Surrealism is supposed to go into the surreal in these unrealistic settings. And this technique was how surrealists got their crazy, fantastical ideas. They did a thing, and this is automatism. So what we're doing is we're taking something we normally would never have done. We rub this object, and it elicits a sort of texture. So I have here is what I rubbed the fan, and I'm going to show you in a little bit how I got this and how I got this. And then what I did is I outlined the marker around it, and some really unique things started happening because I had no control of it. I was just rubbing my pen or my pencil and crayon across it, and it made these things stand out. So with surrealism, it's really trying to go into that subconscious, and my mind is sort of making these connections when I'm connecting these like sort of lines, and I'm creating it as I go along. So it's a really neat exercise, and it's a way for us to sort of explore into a new dimension of how we can become better artists. So without further ado, we're going to start doing that now. So these are some of the things that we can be using. You have colored pencils, and they can be any quality. Crayons, pens. Now I have some art pens, but I also have regular ballpoint pens, and pencils. Now here is an example of what I have done with the crayon, but let's just say some of you don't have crayons. So what I want to do is I'm going to do this texture off of this fan. So to do that, I'm going to take So when I'm starting to do the rubbing, I am not doing any specific pattern. I'm just rubbing across the surface just to make sure that I can get the texture. So it's really whatever you want, just to make sure you can get those marks stand out. So as I'm rubbing across the surface, you notice I'm using the side of the pencil. That's what I try to show you here, but it gets pretty blurry. You don't want to use the point, you're trying to use the edge. And here I'm transitioning from the red, and then I'm going to go into a regular pencil. This is like a number 2 pencil that all of you would have. I don't know if mechanical pencils will work, but I bet if you try it lightly, it should be able to work. So what I'm doing is I'm just rubbing along the edges that I know are there, and they stand out. So now we're going to focus in on some areas of where the pencil lines may have been a little bit more erratic. And this is where we're going to start outlining. So I take my fine tip marker. Don't mind my fat thumb, it gets in the way. And what I'm doing is I'm just outlining all of these like little tiny details like this. And all of you can do this. And if you don't have a marker, remember you can use a ballpoint pen. So I'm just going to continue to go through this and outline.
There's a girl who understands by the back of her 2 hands. If she's all you need to know, if you search for years but you lose everything you find. It's braille for the deaf and a signpost for the blind.
So now this is going to be using a ballpoint pen. Any type of black ballpoint pen. And if you don't have black, you can use whatever color you want. The whole point of this is to really outline and start discovering things as we draw.
Track you through the grass, and you ache just to smell her clothes and her cooking down on the stove. You see her face in everyone you pass.
So what I'm doing here is I'm taking these shapes that have been rubbed, like these circles, and I'm just going to repeat them in these sort of just scribbly lines. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at some of these lines that you have and these little marks that have been made by rubbing your crayons or colored pencils, and I want you to find them in your composition, and I want you to sort of repeat this and do this over and over. And what I'm doing is I'm just mindlessly sort of doing this. I'm just finding a mark that I seem to like, and I'm going to sort of repeat it. So I'm doing these sort of scribble. I'm just repeating these lines over and over. And I took this idea from those oval shapes that were on the basket that I used the crayon to rub and get that texture. And now I'm just going to take these marks from here, and I'm just going to extend them down just to see what happens. I'm just sort of exploring and experimenting right now. And that's all I want you to do is for the remainder of this drawing is to do that. Just find some shapes that you like, and I want you to repeat them in the negative space in the white that we see in the rest of the composition.
Press your face against the glass, only to find that she is happy inside.
With that, we're just about done with the drawing. I'm going to go back and touch up some areas that I think that need a little bit more line work, fill in that negative space, and we're going to have a completed drawing. All in all, this should be about a week-long project. That's why I'm giving it to you now, so that we can work on it from now until spring break. When we come back from spring break, we got a really exciting project we're going to be working on. All right? So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow in class. Remember, we're going to have our Google meeting at 1 o'clock. So I look forward to seeing you all there. I'm going to push out a PowerPoint to you all in a little bit, and we're going to go from there. All right? Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.